Hello and welcome. It is 9 o'clock. It is the 28th day of September 2021, and I am your tabletop role-playing game guide to all the D&D tabletop role-playing game news, weather, and sports, the man who is known as the OGGM. Reminding you once again, before we go any further, that if you have not started your Christmas and Thanksgiving shopping, it is highly recommended that you begin now. Due to the shipping issues, many of the products we expect to be in the stores for Thanksgiving and Christmas, like turkeys, are not going to be available, so get them now. Okay, hello and welcome. It is time to do another weird dive into the mystery of who is Warduke and where does he come from? What is Warduke and where does he come from? How is Warduke and where does he come from? And why? Why does he dress that way? And how is half a piece of chain plate mail and half a piece of chain plate mail hanging onto his arm and his leg? Now the arm, I can guess, how it works because it's attached to the thing on his shoulder. So maybe that would work. But the leg, how does that work? Is it attached to his belt? It's only one side of the leg, so it's constantly chafing, while his other leg is completely naked. I just, where's the rest of the armor? I just don't get it, and there's no explanation. And yes, that dagger does look like a penis. And that was probably intentional. So, there's been a lot of confusion since I started talking about my boy Warduke as to where he came from, and what he's doing in Witchlight, and how he got to the Forgotten Realms, because we're acting under the assumption that that Witchhaven takes place in the Forgotten Realms, and that Warduke has been there. And a lot of people have said, oh yeah, Warduke was in the 80s cartoon, and all those other guys were in the 80s cartoon, and Warduke has always been in the Forgotten Realms, and he was in such and such an adventure. So you're wrong, because my running joke about Warduke is, and the other guys like Ringland and Strongheart, is how did they get to the realms? Because up until then, they've just been action figures and only appeared in one or two other products, which were not part of the Forgotten Realms. And people are like, no. They were in the cartoon, and they were in the Forgotten Realms, and they're in this module. Okay, so we need to clarify that. Warduke was not in the 80s cartoon. Some of the other characters might have been in the 80s cartoon, but no, Warduke comes from an action figure. And the first appearance of Warduke and company is in a module called Quest for the Hearthstone. This was an expert module. It is released in 1984 by TSR under the guidance of Michael L. Gray. It is the first and only XL adventure for the Expert D&D series. It is based upon a licensed toy line. The toy line came out from LJN and was around 1983, 1984. The series included Elkhorn, the good dwarf fighter, Kellic, the evil sorcerer, Mercian, the good female cleric. Really? Her name is Mercian? Like Mercy on? Really? Come on. Melf, the good fighter mage elf, Melf of Melf Acid's Arrow fame, North Lord, the great barbarian, Ogre King, the evil ogre leader. His name is Ogre King. Ogre King, so his last name is King, I guess. Ringland, the good wizard, Strongheart, the good paladin, Warduke, our boy Warduke, the evil fighter, and Zarek, the Zarek, the evil half-orc assassin. Evil half-orc. Series 2 included Bowmark, the good crusader, Deeth, the good fighter, Drex, the evil fighter, Grimsword, the evil knight, Hockler, the good ranger, Mandoom, the good warrior, Methalflame, the evil fire giant, and Zorag, the evil barbarian. And in 1983, there were some mounts for these guys. Strongheart got a mount, and Warduke got a mount. They also did a dragon and a hook war of all things. The LJN toys were made in conjuration with TSR. There was, the whole thing of you get things. There were some other characters in the adventure that didn't get figures, like Figgin the Halfling. And there were some other figures and bendy toys and PVC toys that came out around this time, though most people remember Warduke as being the coolest and really wanted to, play him. So that's probably the one that people most remember. There was also a write-up from Warduke and some of the other characters in Shady Dragon Inn in 1983 and in Red Arrow, Black Shield 1985. Warduke also appears in a Dragon magazine article later on. With some of the stats for that time. Now, as for where Warduke is, Hearthstone takes place in the known world. And that the kingdom that this Hearthstone adventure takes place eventually found its way into Mystera, much in the same manner that other Orphan products did. They weren't originally conceived as Mysterian entities, but became so by default, since the toys were marked for kids. Thus, the basic D&D game GAZF4, The Hidden Treasure of Gazir, a fan-made supplement from the vaults of Pandaris, places Gazir in the far north of the known world. The known world being Greyhawk. So Warduke, Ringland, Strongheart are all Greyhawk characters. Greyhawk characters. God, I cannot talk today. They are not Forgotten Realms characters, and they did not appear in the cartoon. They were action figures. They appeared in one adventure, one supplement. Then later on, they appeared in a second supplement, and there was a write-up for Strongheart and Warduke in a Dragon magazine. And then they just kind of bopped around in the collective unconsciousness of Dungeons & Dragons. There was a Warduke figure in the short-lived Drums of War tabletop miniature game that Wizards of the Coast tried to push a couple years ago. Wasn't a very good figure. And then now he brings us up to Warduke's reappearance today in Witchhaven. Witchlight, Strixhaven. God, brain, not working. I am old. Or just getting Alzheimer's. Or having major dyslexia, autism issues today. You know what I mean. So somehow, much like many of the other NPCs, this action figure became an character in an adventure, became a NPC statted block in a stat block book, became a individual in a third adventure stat block book, became a stat block in a Dragon magazine, then floated around and appeared as a figure for a miniature game, and then floated around, and now he is a 5th edition character in Witchlight, in the Forgotten Realms. How did he get from the known world, Mystara / Greyhawk, to Witchlight / the Forgotten Realms? We don't know. How did Mordenkainen get from Greyhawk to the Forgotten Realms and suddenly become a mainstay of the Forgotten Realms? Don't know. Maybe that'll be explained in Mordenkainen's magnificent maelstrom of monsters. Yes, I'm going to keep making fun of that name because it's such a great name to make fun of. Not that I have anything against the book or Mordenkainen. It could be an excellent book. It could be a stupid book. It could be an amazing book. It could be a totally pointless book. But the name just deserves to be made fun of. It's just a great name. And we don't know how Dragonlance characters like Fizbin got to the Forgotten Realms. We don't know how Greyhawk characters like Vecna and Mordenkainen are now suddenly in the Forgotten Realms. There's probably characters from, and now we have characters from Mystara, which was and was not part of Greyhawk, who are now in the Forgotten Realms. How they got there, we don't know. Does it matter? Probably not. Will Wizards of the Coast ever explain it? Doubtful. But to clarify yet again, Warduke, Ringland, Strongheart, not in the cartoon. Not Forgotten Realms characters. Action figures, 2 Greyhawk characters, 2 5th edition Forgotten Realm heroes and villains for Witchlight. Still does not explain why Warduke dresses like that, or how that works, or really who he is. We know he's an evil fighter. We know he used to be friends with Strongheart. We know that something happened to break them apart, and Strongheart became a paladin, and Warduke became this evil fighter. We know that he hangs out with Ringland and, tends to just let Ringland tell him what to do, and that his favorite combat tactic is just hitting people with his flaming sword, and nobody knows what he looks like under the helmet. Now, for those of you who think the helmet is ridiculous and impractical, helmets like that actually existed. And if you've ever seen a Russian film called Alexander Nevsky, you can see a lot of the ridiculous but historically accurate helmets that were worn, especially by the Germans and some of the Europeans and a few Russians, but mostly Europeans and Germans had really excessive, ridiculous helmets with things like horses and castles and gigantic candelabras on them. Why? For the same reason that they show things on their shield, so you know who they are. The more outlandish the helmet, the more upper ranking the individual was, the more important the individual was. The stuff on the helmet was similar to a coat of arms. On the shield, it allowed you to recognize them across the battlefield. You would know that guy's important, that guy's not important. And if some dude you've never seen before comes riding up and he's got, a duck on his shield and a duck on his helmet, and you're going to see, probably the first thing you're going to see is this helmet with a duck, especially if there's other stuff going on, you should know that duck represents the coat of arms of the king of duckdom. And then you'd be like, yes, he's a friend. I recognize the duck on his helmet. Oh, I see the duck on his shield. It's pretty much the equivalent of an ID card today. It was how we told who people were in the battle. So if you think Warduke's helmet is ridiculous and impractical, actually it is not. It does have a historical significance. So of all the things that Warduke is wearing, his penis dagger, his half armor, his skull shield, the helmet is actually historically accurate. And there are even more ridiculous helmets. Take a look at the film Alexander Nevsky. Yeah, I think it's Nevsky. Or some of the helmets on display in some of the European armor museums. There are some, literally some of them look like they have candelabras on them. Anyways, hopefully I have clarified and also deepened the mystery of who and what Warduke is and where Warduke and the other characters come from. Will we ever see action figures of them again, considering Hasbro has done some Legacy Power Ranger figures through the Lightning Collection, has done some Legacy G.I. Joe figures through the Lightning Collection, and the G.I. Joe Classic Collection has done a lot of Transformers Classic figures through the Legacy Collection and the Classic Collection. I'm hopeful we see a new Warduke Ringland Strongheart and Company action figure. I'd buy it. I would run out and buy a Warduke Lightning Collection action figure if Hasbro released it. So please, Hasbro, make a new Warduke action figure, because I never got a chance to have the old one. There you go. If you appreciate this deep delve into the mystery of Warduke and his amazing helmet and ridiculous armor, let me know. If you don't, also let me know. If you never want to see me talk about this again, let me know. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. We currently are at 500 subs. If we remain at 500 subs by 7 p.m. this evening, I will do a tour of CES games and anime, as I have long promised. Obviously, I cannot talk today, so I'm going to let you go. Have a great day. Stay warm, stay dry. Stay healthy, stay happy. Do not wear penis daggers, because it just looks ridiculous. And stay off my land. And I will see you later, assuming I remember how to talk. Warduke, you the man, buddy.